Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows, movies, and anime, currently featuring Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, Miraculous Ladybug, and RWBY. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Delaney Stovall.
Hello.
Today, Delaney and I will be discussing the latest episode of RWBY, The Battle of Beacon, Chapter 10 of Volume 3 of RWBY. We discuss RWBY every week here on the Overly Animated Podcast, and you can check us out at overlyanimated.com. Spoilers for this episode of RWBY and all of RWBY Volume 3 and everything else. Let's get right into Battle of Beacon. What did you think, Delaney?
Which I guess I didn't pay attention to the episode title, and I was like, I'm watching the Battle of Hogwarts.
Yeah.
It's literally what it is.
It was, yeah.
And, I'm a little surprised that we had an episode like this, and that, like, I really thought we were, like, getting a bit more somewhere. This was just, the quintessential, like, battle episode. Everyone's fighting, we're still setting up for the end of the season. Which I figured we'd be a little bit further than we are right now, which is fine. I mean, this episode's fine. Like, it sets up everything. Like, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen next. The Grim Dragon was super cool, and apparently is the mother of all Grim.
Yeah, apparently.
The big standout to me, though, is the quote-unquote camera angles in this episode.
Interesting.
Like, how we moved through scenes. At first, it was a little like, whoa, but then I started to really like it. Like, I think it's the most interesting part of the episode is because, I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those fight episodes, and like, yes, it's great, and and LOL, we've been talking about the lockers, and look, the lockers finally appeared. There's like 12,000 lockers now.
Yeah.
But I think the big takeaway that I liked the episode. I'm just was really fascinated by the camera, like unquote, like how he moved through scenes in this episode.
That's interesting. So props to Carrie's direction work here, I guess. That makes sense that the direction would stand out in an episode that's light on narrative. I think. I think that this is fine. This episode, it was like it was. Can't think of anything that stood out to me, but it was just solid. I would have preferred an episode with more narrative, but this is how it functions within the season. This is the type of episode that makes more sense if you view the season altogether, because just having like a battle episode on its own really doesn't work like as well as some other episodes obviously would.
Especially since we had a week off.
Yeah, so it's like a letdown from a narrative perspective, but it's not, that's not the show's fault, right? This is going to function much better within the context of the entire season. I'm fully aware of that. So, I mean, I did not like it, but I also didn't particularly like anything that happened. There are some things that I have problems with, like I continue to not necessarily, like, everything's continuing to spiral downward, and I don't really like anything that's happening. Like, I know that you're not supposed to like bad things happening, but they should at least seem somewhat satisfying and like given the build up, and I don't think there's enough build up for the major bad thing that happened here. So we'll talk about that. And of course, it's interesting. You said that you thought we'd be further along. I kind of agree, but also, I mean, we don't know where we're gonna end up this season. There's still 2 full more episodes to go, so there's a lot that could happen.
I just thought we would I just wasn't expecting an entire battle episode. Like, I was expecting some sort of shift.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's fine that we didn't get it. Hopefully we'll have more breathing room in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, we were calling this like the start of a war last time, but I didn't know that we'd focus so much on the war, right? Like, that's kind of what this was.
Which it's just so, granted, this is how the Battle of Hogwarts functions. It's just, we just don't have Harry doing anything right now.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that I agree. Battle of Hogwarts is like the closest comparison, but that's like that's the final book. This is just like random season 3, right? So it's weird to have this in the middle of the show.
We don't really have the underlying, we really don't know what's going on. Like, with Battle of Hogwarts, like, we know what they're getting the Horcruxes. Like, we know what they're going for. Harry has to fight Voldemort. It's like, what are we doing? Like, is RWBY gonna fight Cinder? RWBY is about to fight Roman. Like,
No, Ruby's about to fight Neo. We're setting up for a Ruby
Oh
Neo
yeah,
battle.
Neo.
That
Well, I know.
yeah.
I just meant like she's on the
Well,
ship.
maybe Roman too, but yeah, Ruby Neo
Yeah.
battle is gonna be that's one fans have been calling for. So happy about that. But yeah, I think that I will be happy with this episode in the context of the season, really only if the villains win at the end. Like
Yeah.
I
Same.
don't think this makes that much sense if everything's just resolved again. I don't think that's where we're going. Like I think they're doing some sort of shift in the show. Um, but
I think like we're. I mean, I think I mentioned that I want a season of like just we're not like I think we're setting up for next season to be like I don't know captured or like under a new regime, like
yeah, it's like
possibly like
they
a new
took over
headmaster at Beacon or something.
something like that. They took over Vale, and it's like the Beacon students rise up. Yeah, um, and I
Like an expanded like Hogwarts from like the other perspective.
this the thing is that this is it's striking because this is so much bigger than anything they've done in the last two seasons. Like season one was just a very isolated kind of conflict at the end. Season two had kind of a bigger thing, but it was never you never thought this was like the end all be all. And now we're jumping right into this one of the big like they say this day will go down in um in history. And I think that like we're stepping up so quickly to some huge world changing event that I really do think we need some payoff. Like I think it'll be really unsatisfying if nothing happens at the end of the season.
Well, especially like the Grimm are so like I mean we talked like a lot about how the Grimm function in the show and how they don't really need anything else, but it's also like I'm not really worried that the Grimm are running around.
The Grimm are the
Like
least of the problems here.
like the fighting and all this is very anticlimactic to me. Like, and I mean, I understand why we're doing it. Like, we have to have this whole like, Vale's under attack, the Grimm, everyone's fighting, like we're defending the school. Like that all makes sense. I understand why I have to do this, but then like, I don't know, like a lot of I don't necessarily know if these moments were supposed to pay off, but there were several moments, with Blake and Weiss like fighting, and then it was like I don't really care. Like the thing is, at the end of the day, we always expect them to defeat the Grimm, and to me, that's going to be the more interesting thing is if the Grimm win, because even let's say like if the villains win, the villains win, and it's just because they used the Grimm. It's not like the Grimm won, like they're in control. I think that's really what I want is that I want the Grimm to win.
Yeah,
Like
that would
that's what
be
I want to
yeah, it'd
happen.
be like because you forget, but Remnant is portrayed as this kind of chaotic world where there's just these four hubs of civilization within the chaos, right? So it'd be interesting to see one of the hubs fall back into you fall to the rest of the world, which is kind of I don't know if that's like here's the thing. So it's there it's like controlled chaos that they're unleashing upon Beacon Vale here, and the coming into this episode we have the two threats of Grim and the White Fang, and then we're adding the controlled robot soldiers at the end.
There's
So
just so much going
that
on.
Elysian Knights, yeah. So it's like, what's the ultimate outcome going to be? That's the thing. Like the Grim, I feel like are I don't know. Like they work better here because they're not like they're only the initial threat, like within the
Yeah.
context of this episode. But it's really just obviously there's so much worse stuff that's happening. Like I know that they fight some Grimmer portrayed as a big threat here. And at least we go big. Like we have the Nevermore, which is the best Grim we've seen. We add a new Grim. Like I think that's a good idea. Like at least we do that stuff. But still, it's just that the last few episodes really kind of suffered because the Grim I feel like were not as much of a thing as the writers thought they would be. But yeah, here. So let's
There's
talk
just
about.
too much going on. Like
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
there's so much going on. Like this went from like typical fantasy, like the forces of good versus the forces of evil to like we have robots. Like this became the plot of I, Robot, and then like
I mean,
there's
I
just
feel
so
like
much
that's the
going
biggest
on.
takeaway from this episode is the Atlas Knight robots turning against our heroes. So let's talk about that. So I think that this is kind of like super it feels to the viewer I think it feels unfair, but also it's kind of a little satisfying because they've been building up this plot line for a while and we're finally seeing the payoff. Like I feel like this is one that we could have seen coming. Like we thought that it would happen
Yeah.
with Penny, basically what's happening with the Atlas Knights, like, but it just totally makes sense that this is what they're doing with that,
Like, I
given
don't think anyone's surprised.
yeah, this is yeah, like we built up like, oh, these are everyone's like, "Ooh, Ironwood, you're robots. That's not a good idea." And he's like, "Nah, it's fine." And now now it's like, "Oh no, it's not fine." But
Yep.
I basically just think this is completely unfair because it just makes no sense that they're able to control all the knights right away. I kind of
I
hate
mean,
it.
I
I
think
kind of hate it. Like
well,
it's
I think it does make sense for me. I'm not satisfied in like, okay, great, now we have robots. Like this is literally like a pirate zombie like vampire fanfic. Like we're just gonna throw everything in here right now. We're gonna have robots and the Grim and this and that and then the giant, like dragon Grim. And it's like
for a show
really,
where one of its biggest flaws is like it can't stay focused on its main characters. Like going this wide at the end of the season is not a good idea.
it's like it's ridiculous. Like that's like for me, I actually completely buy it. Like it makes sense to me that they can control the robots. Like that's fine. They hacked into the system. We've It's been proven that they can get into whatever. And as much as that might seem unbelievable, it's consistent with what we've seen
It
in the
is
show so
consistent. I
far.
agree. But
And like
as
that's fine.
as
For me, it's just like the fact that the robots. Like, why do we have to have all of this right now?
well, the robots have been there for like forever. Like they've just been here
Yeah,
the
I know.
entire time.
Well, for me, I don't. To me, it's not satisfying in that like the robots have always been there, and it's been like kind of an important plot point for like maybe 3 episodes. The robots are always there, but like half the time I don't even pay attention. Like I'm like, oh, the robots, right? I forgot. Like because we have the robots and the guards, and they look the same. Like they're just you can just kind you like I mean, yes, they're robots. But, like you know what I'm talking about? Like they look identical
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
shots. And so like for me, I'm not satisfied so much. Like to me, this isn't a big payoff. Like it's like okay, they took control of the robots. LOL, who cares? And like I enjoyed it visually. Like they turned red and they turned like that was cool. But like there's no payoff for me. Like I don't care.
That's
And
interesting.
then to me it's just ridiculous. Like we have like they're basically throwing everything they have at Beacon, and it's like, is this really necessary? Like you'd think the Grim would be enough because it's not like yes they train hunters and huntresses, but you like it's such an absurd amount of Grim. Like you would
The
think that
problem
would be
is we
enough.
don't know what their end goal is, so we don't know like why
Yeah,
it's necessary to have. Like I mean, it seems like the robots had the biggest effect here because like they shoot down Ironwood and
yeah,
like it seemed like Glinda and Crow were like taking on the Grim Vine until the Knights turned on them, right?
yeah.
So this had a big impact, but like why? Like where are we going? We still don't know.
And like,
I
right now, it's just like they're just creating chaos, and it's like, why? Like
yeah.
that's cool, but why?
Yeah, I agree. It just seems very chaotic right now. Although turning the soldiers is more of a step towards them actually gaining control of Vale.
Yeah,
I basically think the opposite of you. Although I think your opinion makes sense to me. To me, like the Knights have been there for a while. We've had this like concurrent running theme of the danger of like advancing technology this far in the world, and like I feel like this is paying off 2 seasons worth of stuff. But it is a very minor thing, so I can see it not being satisfied in that regard. Like it hasn't been a thing since season 2, but also it's like, is this paying off our Ozpin versus Ironwood plotline? Not really, right? Like this involves
no,
Ironwood heavily, but it's not like Ironwood's fault. Is it like Ironwood was wrong? What's the takeaway here? Like so I feel like the bigger theme was Ozpin v Ironwood, and we didn't really have that paid off.
no.
So
Like
I could see it from that regard.
Ozpin's like not he's Ozpin's like in like the last 5 seconds of the episode, and
Yeah,
like
we need to
doesn't do
talk
it.
about Osmond. But yeah, to me, I mean, let me quickly stating my qualms about the robots, the robot sorting. Like they insert the phone into the plane, the computer on the plane, and suddenly all the robots instantly turn red. Like as someone who kind of works in this field, that is not how that works at all. And they would obviously have uh, security in place to like even like maybe you can infect the plane, but like I mean, come on. Like
Yeah,
there's gonna be
no,
you're
it's
not gonna have
ridiculous.
interconnected robots and leave this giant hole in in infecting all of them at once. That's just so dumb.
Granted, all of their technology makes zero
It
sense.
does. You're right.
So
I forgot their phones were called scrolls until this episode.
yeah,
Like I completely forgot that.
well,
Uh,
it's like everything regarding technology in the show has never made sense.
it's yeah.
Even though I like the scrolls, they make no sense. So
To me, this reminds me of this. The climax of this episode reminds me of the end of the first what's it called book with the I don't remember. Divergent book, right? Like they have this exact same plot line.
yeah,
Yeah. So this is just a
it's
very
that
treaded on, and I hate it in the end of that book. Like this is always super unsatisfying to me because then like everyone dies and it's like really annoying, and I don't know. Like I think bad things can happen, but they need to seem satisfying to the audience. Um, and I'm not convinced this is like, we'll give it time. This is, there's still 2
Yeah.
episodes left. We'll see what they do with it. This isn't, I'm not saying this is like a clear negative, but this is in the dangerous territory of seems unfair. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's go through the episode because there are some interesting character stuff happening in between all of the action chaos. I will say I do think the direction's really good. I think the score for this episode's incredible. It continues to be the best thing about the show. And I just think overall it's one of the most maybe the most cinematic episode of the show, and it's like notable in that regard.
I think that's the part to me that like that's what stands out about this episode and like makes it like okay. Like it makes it like to me like I enjoyed this episode because like
I could see people who like are super into more of like the action stuff, like not necessarily like the action stuff, because the action here is so much different than the typical action scene in the show, right?
yeah.
Like not like the music video awesome type thing. Like there's very small amounts of that here. But I could see a certain type of person thinking this is like one of the best episodes of the show, and I'm fine with that. Like I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it, so I'm fine with people loving it. I'm not like contradicting that in my opinion. I just wasn't blown away by too much here. Okay, so let's in the beginning of the episode. First, we have to talk about how big of a monochrome this episode this is.
It's been intense. Like
That it's like they've just been together for the past 3 episodes, yet nothing has happened, anything romantic. So I don't know. It's I guess that's not what they're doing, but yeah, they're there. After their
well, it's a very interesting like switch on like the partners and stuff.
I do kind of love how this episode pays off all of season 1, like, or just the past 3 episodes. It's like we spent so much time with Blake and Weiss fighting, and now they're BFFs, and like Weiss is like unconditionally loves Blake. So I mean, loves is like friends, like chill chippers. But like, yeah, I think this is a really good character payoff. So I'm completely fine with them doing this.
It's fine. But granted, I mean, it's like, well, where's Yang? And then granted, we have like RWBY doing stuff. Like,
Yeah, no,
finally.
good RWBY episode, bad Yang episode because we get one scene of her here, and it's like we call Yang's okay. And it's like Yang says she's going to the docks, I think, and then they're going there too, but then we don't see Yang at the end.
Yeah.
So
well, but they weren't at the docks.
They didn't
either.
make it to the docks, I guess. Yeah, I don't have my Vale geography down, but yeah. It's yeah, and I don't know. So yeah, we see Blake and Weiss interspersed throughout the episode. I kind of like how they do that. I loved seeing them fight, although it was kind of dumb. Like they're just taking out like hundreds of people, but but it was still cool to see them fight. White Fang releasing Grimm into the school by the docks, they say, apparently is a thing
that's happening. They did seamlessly turn from fighting Grimm to fighting the White Fang. Like they didn't make a big deal out of it. They're just like, okay, now we're just fighting the White Fang.
Yeah, they're both just there. They call down their weapons and then they're heading to the docks. Back in the arena, the Nevermore is still on top. Ruby's sad. Sad RWBY. Yeah, it's kind of bad. And we see Penny actually torn apart finally. We like actually see.
I did get a little annoyed with RWBY in the episode, simply like she kept making the same facial expression. It didn't really make a lot of sense as to why she was like gaping at the sky a few times. Like, what are you doing?
I don't know. I got one awesome shot of RWBY that I made the screenshot for this episode. Good. But yeah, I don't know. I
think there were a few moments they like stuff with RWBY was made awkward because she didn't really speak a lot in this episode, and so like they would just do cuts of her face. It was like, this looks really weird.
It's a little. I assume they're trying to balance like just the extreme grief that she has with like now she needs to fight, and like it's too much of a drastic tonal shift for them to handle. So I could see that being awkward. Yeah. Pyrrha also devastated by this. RWBY goes to protect Pyrrha from the Nevermore. And they all call their weapons down on top of it because apparently that's how that works, right?
That cracked me up. I was like, "This is ridiculous."
But like in like an intentional way, or like
so
in like this is the show like being funny, or this is the show being ridiculous. Which one?
I don't like.
It's hard to tell.
What?
It's really hard to tell.
I don't know.
Okay, so we have this group of people here. This basically all the people we saw fighting earlier in the season. We have Team Juniper, Team Sun, Team Coffee, Auburn, and Funky. There you go. I got it. And I guess that's kind of cool that we just see all the people we saw fighting. Like,
Yeah, it was cool, but like at the same time, it's like I don't care.
yeah, I don't care about Team Funky Team.
Well, the thing is, like, it would have been fine if it had just been like this one part, and, like we continue to see them, and it's like I know they're in the show and like they're characters, and it's like I don't care.
Yeah, it's. I think this is a good use though of all these characters because they're just in the background.
Yeah, I do.
At least we didn't have like there. I mean, there's complaints to be had later because we saw them fighting. We have like a 5 second shot of them all fighting Grimm, and it's like at the end of last season, Coco just tore up all the Grimm, and here she's just like only taking on one. So there's a little bit of a
Yeah.
logical like. It's like I thought Coco was OP, but okay, she's now a background character,
Yep.
so she doesn't get to do that much. They all take out the Nevermore. Pyrrha apologizes to Ruby. Okay, so logic check. Ruby's instantly like, it's not your fault. What do you think about that?
I mean, like it makes sense given Ruby's character,
Given her like
as a
nature, but
person.
would she be able to figure out that it wasn't Pyrrha's fault so fast?
I don't like it. A lot of it doesn't make sense because like they did have this speech. And like Jean following up with like it's that lady who was
Yeah,
talking salt.
but
That was
If
good,
John
but
can figure out that it's the lady who's talking's fault, why can't everyone else do that too? Right?
I
That's my
don't
thing.
like a lot of this. Like I think they're just like running over it just so like we don't have to deal with it like right now.
Yeah, which I'm fine with, I guess.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but at the same time, though, can you not have Ruby gaping at the sky for like half an episode over this? If like she's just gonna be like, okay, it's not really your fault, here, bye. Like, it's not like I don't think there's like a fault in the logic. It's just weird. Like, it's just
It's
they
just
wanted
yeah,
to
it's the same thing with the Ruby grief. It's just very fast.
they wanted to do two different things. Like, we're gonna do them both at the same time. It's like,
Yeah,
no, you can't do that.
I
They
agree
did
with
that.
that. They're doing too many things tonally here. We have Griffin Grimms coming down. Ruby gets Crescent Rose. We have Port and Oobleck fighting them off, and we're kind of left in suspense on their status. Presumably, they can handle them, I would say. Although they're like
Yeah.
one final. They say, I think Port says one final go, right? So that's a little questionable. Like,
Place your bets. Yeah.
are we are we killing them off? I would hope not.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that seems a little. I mean, it seems a little ridiculous.
Yeah. Then we have Ruby saying "Let's go," and then we have a random picture from Velvet. Like that's odd.
Well, I think it's because she looked like all heroic and stuff. Like I wanted to take a picture, but
Yeah,
it was weird.
that was
though.
weird.
Like I was like, well, the thing is, it completely takes you out of the moment because it's like
It
I'm
does,
sitting
yeah.
there, I'm like, man, Ruby's such a leader. Look at her, she's leading everybody. And then she takes a picture, and it's like, well, we just
Yeah.
broke the fourth wall.
Yeah, it was kind of well. I don't know. They set that up last episode, but whatever.
It was weird.
Ironwood, big Ironwood episode. I think that I really liked him in here, and I think there's really good use of him.
His fight scene was probably one of the most interesting fight scenes we've had in the show,
Yeah.
even though it was like 2 seconds. It was really interesting because like it's so completely different from any other fight scene, and like the angles on it were like amazing.
Okay, that's one of the ones that stood out to you with the angles. Yeah, I could see that.
Even though his body looked weird the entire
Yeah.
time, like it looked like the animation got really funky there, but like the angles were enough to like keep me from like being too irritated.
Monty credited on animation on this episode, so I assume they reused one of Monty's old scenes. Because that's the new theory, I think, for that I have, is
Yeah.
that they're just using old Monty fight scenes. I could see this being one of the ones that they used a Monty scene basis on. Anniversary of his death, I think, tomorrow, by the way. So, yeah, very sad. But Ironwood fighting Grimm, yeah. So he takes out this one Grimm, and then he just instantly kills the second Grimm. And I saw people being like, "Why did he take so long on this first Grimm if he just shoots the second one like later?"
Well, I mean, granted, that's the question with any show like this. Like,
Yeah, that's
really,
true.
there's no point to it. Like, we've seen them take out Grimm in like 5 seconds. We've also seen them take 20 minutes to fight one Grimm, so it's whatever.
He says status. There's Grimm. There's White Fang, and there's and we can't be in the skies because they took over one of my ships. He says, so I'm going to take it back, and he shoots the Grimm in the middle of
So he
that.
literally leaves, and I went, he's gonna die. And then what happened?
That line though, so I'm
Right.
gonna take it back. Like Ironwood's never sounded more awesome. It was pretty great.
You know, he was pretty legit in this episode.
I've always been an Ironwood apologizer. let's be clear, but it pays off here. He's great.
I just liked his character design, and then today it finally paid off, and he was actually cool.
I think
So, like,
I think he's cool. Like I'm a big Ironwood fan. Fight. Then he's like, you can fight or you can leave, and then it's like, oh, we're going to begin the fight. So hooray!
I did like that he wasn't like get on the ships. Like he was like, you can do whatever you want. Bye.
Yeah, I think he's always like that. Like he's pretty
Yeah,
cool. uh,
he's cool.
Roman and Neo on the ship, they took over. Roman just being Roman, but then they're like, he's like, what does this do? And he drops all the things. He's like, oh, I guess nothing. I thought that was pretty funny.
I liked it too. It was really funny because like the sirens went off and they were like all looking at like the rope. They were like,
Yeah.
It was-
And then we have them put the virus on the ship. Robots turn on Glynd and Crow. They have the red flashing on their face. Yeah, like you know what that kind of reminded me of was the Avatar season 1 finale with the red moon. It's like red color symbolizing like a villainous turn.
Well, from like it's literally iRobot. Like this literally happens in iRobot.
Yeah. Okay.
They turn red,
They
and like the
turn red in
robots turn
iRobot.
red,
Okay.
and they attack. Like that's it's literally iRobot.
Common
Have you not
thematic
seen
and
iRobot?
also just copying that. Yeah, I could see it.
Literally the same.
Monochrome circled by the robots. Then they turn an Ironwood ship and they shoot him down. Um, Ruby. Okay, so what's do we
This
see? Do
part
we
is like
see? Do we see
crazy.
what happens to Ironwood ship later? I don't remember. Like, I think
I
we see
don't.
it falling.
I thought we saw it crash. Like it was when it was Blake and Weiss, and like then we see the ship.
I'm pretty sure he's not dead.
You know, he's not dead. Even though I was
I
like,
don't
oh,
think
well, he
he's. I
did.
don't think him dying here makes sense. Like, there's just.
No.
It's not like nobody would care, and it's there. It's not like plotly purposeful, right? So.
Oh, granted, they could do something where like, oh no, he's dead, but then when he comes back like next season or something, I'd be fine with that. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Whatever.
Like I don't think he's really dead.
I think we see something jump out of the ship, but it might have been a Grim.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a different ship.
That was confusing because they cut to a shot of like Grim jumping out. So like I think that was like purposefully
hard to keep track of. Yeah. Ruby goes off the ship that they're on, takes one of the things, and launches onto Roman's ship.
Like, I was so confused. I was like, what is going on?
Ruby just casually can
like,
just fly everywhere, you know.
Like it was cool, but at the same time, it was absurd. Like
It's
it was
pretty
absolutely ridiculous.
I like Ruby
I
doing
thought she
absurd
was
things.
jumping onto the ship. Like that's what I thought, and then she runs in. I'm like, wait, what? And then no.
There's precedent for Ruby being able to do these things, but then it's like she doesn't do it most of the time, so it's kind of weird.
Well, it just we know the characters do like weird stuff, like they can just do ridiculous things.
Yeah.
But like this was a little over the top.
Yeah, and like setting up for our Neo Ruby showdown, which is gonna be fun. Back to Monochrome fighting White Fang and robots. They need to separate, and Weiss is like, "Be safe," and that's the most shippy thing that they say. So
Literally the entire time, I'm like, no, not Adam. No, not Adam.
Blake
no.
runs into Adam. No, Adam.
God.
Adam says, "Hello, my darling."
God.
So, what's your read
Matt.
on this line from Adam?
Like, he's a jerk, and I hope Blake just like beats the crap out of him.
I said this. I think I said this last week or 2 weeks ago, but I always have read the Adam Blake dynamic as romantic. Like even from the Black trailer, which aired before the show even started. Like I read this as clearly they're going for a past romantic thing.
Yep.
Do you think that this line confirms that?
Yes, it does, and it's very irritating.
It could just be him, being him just being
He's just
cocky.
being obnoxious.
Yeah, but I still think that this is clearly what they're going for.
It's clearly like a past romantic relationship. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever been really like too much in question. Like it's so obvious.
Yeah,
especially
it's
given
not
how the show.
confirmed, but yeah,
No, but like the way the show handles things like this, like it's always going to be like this. Like
given the simplistic heteronormative perspective of the show is what you're saying, then yes, it's always going to be. This is always
what I'm
dynamic.
Given how straight the show is.
Given how straight, it's obviously. It's interesting that Blake reacts like this. I think, like obviously she's not gonna be happy to see Adam, but it's like complete dread. Like, interesting.
Well, it wasn't the reaction I was expecting, which I'm glad because like I was really expecting
I thought she'd be angry.
Well, I thought they were going to go the complete like annoying straight route, and like I don't even know, like
oh,
it was just
like Adam, like that.
No,
Yeah.
but no,
I'm
actually like. I think I like this because I think it's been clear that she's kind of been dreading this encounter for a long time, which I think will make it really interesting. Like the showdown, like it will make it a very interesting like.
I do wonder if we'll see them fight. I don't know if that makes sense that they would fight, but yeah.
Well, I don't like. I don't want them like I want them to fight because I just want Adam gone. Like I just
Yeah.
want him to go away.
Well, no,
Like
he
I
can't
just
leave. We haven't done anything with him. We built him up to be
no,
this
that's
big
why he needs
character,
to go.
and then he hasn't done anything.
I'm afraid of what he's going to mean. I don't want him to be here
So we'll see what
at
they do
all.
with that. I'm pretty. They've set him up to be this big figure, like he's a big plot twist at the end of last season, and yet we haven't done anything with him yet. So whatever.
Uh,
Then we see that
just
shot of
in there
the.
like throwing people around. Like, what are you even doing?
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. We see that shot of the students fighting, like I was talking about before. Um, our three villains minus Roman and Neil on top of the school. Beautiful. It's almost sad, says Mercury. Horrendous. Focus.
It was Emerald.
Emerald, yeah. Focus on the Lucid Knights. And then Mercury's recording. Continue the broadcast until the end. You do not want to miss what happens next. Oh, Cinder is so dumb. Like, that line is
For
so
real.
annoying. Stop making her just this all like no substance, all show type villain. Like even at the
Yeah.
end, we just see her standing somewhere and like we cut into her eyes. Like she's a character that just it's her entire purpose is to look cool and say like ominous things, and that
Like
line is just super
she's
annoying.
literally a piece of cardboard. Like
This is I like this episode convinced me more than any that we need a big bad that's not Cinder, because I'm just super annoyed with her character at this point.
I mean, granted, I do think this scene was interesting in that perhaps Emerald will
Yeah.
break away.
That is the yeah, okay, that's the big interesting thing about this. Emerald is like upset. So, do you think that that's where they're going with Emerald?
Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily know if it'll be like a big drastic breakaway. Like, I could see it. Maybe that could be something they're setting up for. Like, that could be like a season long like thing. Like Emerald being like, and then like
Well,
helping. Like,
Emerald, May, and Tylee, Cinders
yes,
Azula.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I think that they've actually been setting this up. Like I think that the first episode of the season we had Emerald interacting with Team RWBY and them being super nice to her and her like being fake nice back. And even at the end she was like, ugh, like it's so nice. Like
Yeah,
even like I feel like there's some
she's
setup.
literally May.
I think that there's some setup for this. I mean, who's her Zuko though?
This is a really good question.
I mean, who are we shipping Emerald with? Like I don't even know. Do people ship Emerald with anyone?
Can we get rid of Mercury also? Like, can he go away? He really gets on my nerves.
Mercury is pointless. So yeah.
Like, oh my god, I'm so annoyed with him. Like, he was literally filming it. Like, go away.
Yeah,
Like,
Cinder
I
needs
don't
to
care.
get mad at him because he broke rank and there's been no payoff to that, but whatever. Yeah, so I'm interested to see what they do with Emerald. I would love Emerald as a hero because she's one of my favorite characters.
Please.
So
That'd
yeah.
be great.
Oz been watching. He's about to leave to do something. I think there's two possibilities for what he was about to leave to do. Fight, which I feel like is what they're setting it up, but then like we also see him like looking for Pyrrha, maybe. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I
he's
don't
about to
even.
leave, but then he sees that the Dragon Grim comes, right? So
Okay, that was like, okay, so I understood they were like, okay, we have everyone, audience, pause. We all have to care for what's about to happen. Because they set it up for like 3 whole seconds, and then
yeah.
it's like, oh, it's a giant Grim. And it makes more Grim, which that is pretty cool and kind of scary. It makes more Grim, so it's like the mother of all Grim. This was kind of like a How to Train Your Dragon moment, with like the mother dragon and like the red
Yeah,
dragon.
I think that
That.
this was like pretty cool. I do think it's kind of misplaced suspense because I don't think this is
Yeah.
the biggest thing that happened this episode. I think the at least a Knight's turning was the biggest thing. So I think that it's a little bit of not understanding what the climax of the episode is.
Well, it's also kind of like ridiculous. It's like, okay, we've already seen the Nevermore, which is like to us, like that is the biggest, baddest Grim. Like,
Nevermore
that's it.
looks bigger than this dragon, by the
Yeah,
way.
and like the dragon, like also, I thought it was gonna have a bit more of an impressive name than like the Grim Dragon. Like I would assume it's like the Grim Mother or like I don't
It
know.
might have a
like,
different name. That was just like they showed the sketches at the end, so it could have had a different name since then. But
yeah, but like I don't even.
yeah, so I do like the concept of this. It's weird that it's just been living in this mountain, and then it breaks
My
out.
thing is like, was it like entombed or
What?
like was it entombed?
Yeah,
Like, it
I
could
don't
have
know.
been like
And then it just one would assume that it broke out because there's enough negative emotion, and that's how Grim works. But then it's like and Cinder referenced. You'll have to see what happens next, and presumably this has happened next. How does Cinder know that that the Grim Dragon like is going to break out because of this much negative emotion? Like she can hope that that's going to happen, but like
yeah,
it doesn't make
like
any sense.
it just I don't even know.
Unless
And
she
that's
broke
also,
it
like,
out, unless they show next that she did that, then it'll be okay.
also, why do we need all this extra stuff if they believe so much in the Grim Dragon? Like, because if
What
this
is
is
your
the
goal?
moment,
Like, is it to break this out? Like, what are we seeing
like,
it finally? I don't
like,
know.
like I'm confused.
Yeah. Um, we see
Also,
his.
everyone seemed to know what it meant because like you know they had Glinda and everybody was like, oh crap,
Yeah.
like the
It
earth
must
started
be that there's
shaking,
this that they all knew that it was trapped in this mountain that was right next to
yeah,
them,
which
which
is
is dumb.
great, awesome.
Yeah. We have this brief
Also,
moment of.
does this maybe like mean something for like how Grimm are created? Like that we have like this Grim dragon that like drops
Yeah.
Grim.
Maybe Grim just spawned other Grim. We don't know.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Brief moment of Arcos eye contact, which I thought was kind of romantic. At least that's what they were going for. We have, and then we see Pyrrha leave to go to Ozpin in the distance, and then John follows her, and
John,
Cinder,
oh God, John. I
Cinder
swear.
looking, and Cinder on the top of a building. 10th episode. Okay, so let's talk about
Maybe they're gonna kill John.
what we can only hope.
I was like, I'm being real. This is a lot of wishful thinking on
Yeah,
my part.
they're definitely not doing that, but because that's the Miles voiced character. But yeah, we could only hope. So let's talk about what's going on with Ozpin, and to wrapping things up, let's talk about what's going on with Ozpin and Pierre at the end of this episode. So Ozpin, we in this episode we just see watching the fight happening, and at the end he leaves either to go join the fight or to go get Pyrrha, and it's like now or never, right? And then Pyrrha's like, okay, I guess I have to do this, which obviously she's going to do after she tears Penny apart. So so what's gonna happen with Pyrrha? I guess next episode she's gonna like want to become the Fall Maiden, right? And then we'll do that next
And
episode,
John's gonna be there and be really annoying.
and then that'll be an entire dumb romantic thing. But here's my question: is like I said, Osmond's like prime suspect for being our big bad. Does this episode support that?
I think if it supports anything, it supports that like
There's
there could
nothing.
be some
There's
sort
nothing
of
of Sam substance here, right?
well, it could be like maybe Ozpin is like Austin wants his own champion, and whether we want and regardless if that's good or bad, that's what's happening. So like I don't know.
I think that
I mean, I don't think he's bad.
I think
But
that there were implied shots of Osmond like not liking what's happening and being genuine, and like he's about to go change things and go out there on his own. So I think that like very subtly this episode is maybe pointing us towards Osmond not being evil, but then again he doesn't actually do anything. He just sits there.
they make
So
him so sketchy. Like he is so sketchy. I just everything Ozpin does, he's just so sketchy.
the problem is Ironwood's down. Glinda and Crow are off fighting, so we need someone to represent the pushback against
Yeah.
Cinder and turn and like get the Fall Maiden powers into Pyrrha. And it's like Osmond's the only one in the position to do that. So if he really was the evil one, then everyone's screwed right now because
Yeah.
something bad will like. But it doesn't really make like if Osmond's the big bad, then there's like nothing anyone can do because
Yeah.
He'll control Pyrrha and the Fall Maiden, and like I don't know. I don't know if they can sustain 2 episodes of continued fall and no pushback, which is what would have to have happen if Osmond was evil. So I'm kind of off it after this.
Well, it also doesn't make like any sense. Like, okay, let's say we get like we want them to lose, right? Like that's the consensus.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing: we get Pyrrha if like let's say it succeeds, then what's the point? We just have these two people fighting, and they have like they complete each other. Like they have the halves of the other's power, and they're just gonna fight. Like, so what? What does that accomplish?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
Like, if they're gonna win, the only way the season can end is Cinder getting the rest of the power and Pyrrha being dead or whatever. And then like, then what are they gonna do? Like, I don't understand what's going on.
Really,
Like,
really weird how they've been handling the maidens here, because like even we have last week a World of Remnant, which just retells the maiden story that we heard in the episode, and it's like, why are we bringing the maidens in? Like this episode has nothing to do with maidens, and it's like almost you could almost just take out the dumb maiden stuff and like have a just as coherent season.
Yes.
So
Except we still have no idea what the villains are doing.
So
but,
like I assume the next 2 episodes will coalesce upon this maiden's plot. How it manifests, I don't know. The World of Remnant last week showed the 4 original maidens who kind of you could draw parallels between each of them and members of Team RWBY. So like that theory is still out there. I don't know how we would do that. I don't know how.
Well, I do. I I do have like if I'm gonna start staking a claim in the finale,
Okay.
and this just kind of came to me, but like I imagine we're gonna have a scene like this is Battle of Hogwarts scene, you know, Voldemort versus Harry, except it's Pyrrha and Cinder, and Pyrrha's about to get the power, or maybe Cinder like in that moment where Cinder defeats Pyrrha and like the power, however it works, is released and is going like Cinder's expecting to get it. Like RWBY comes swinging in or whatever, because RWBY always like shows up at like either the best possible time or the worst possible time. And if this very prominent theory that RWBY is the Fall Maiden or is a maiden, the power could go to her, and we could end the episode on like RWBY like I don't know like the power hitting her or something.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I would love that. The theory's generally been Ruby's the Summer Maiden, but her getting maiden powers at all would be super interesting.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if the, for us to like, because let's say we lose, I think we want to lose, but the thing is like, where are we going to go from there? And I feel like I don't know, like, how are we going to end this season with there being a sense for there to make sense for there to be another season, and then also to like not wrap things up, but like have some sort of like a point in the plot that matters.
Yeah. Yep. I think it would be interesting to do that with Ruby. Maybe I still think it's interesting to see how we're going to have Pyrrha's body like between two personalities. Maybe in the end, Pyrrha's like we have like evil Pyrrha for next season, like Cinder's Pyrrha now. I don't know how that would work, but like that would be really cool though if like Pyrrha turned into the villain. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting possibilities you can go, and you can go basically any direction because there's no concrete narrative or plot structure about this thing. Like it doesn't make sense. So just do whatever you want. I don't think anything they do with the maidens is going to be like satisfying or unsatisfying. It's just going to be neutral, like in terms of a sensical plot. So I would prefer if they. So my hope is that they do something super cool with it. Like that would be yeah. Okay. So, going into the last two episodes, the next 2 weeks, Wikipedia has titles. I don't know where they got these titles from. Maybe they revealed them and I didn't see it. May this be your final battlefield and the last days. So, that's like Endgame as Avatar Season 1 title.
No, I was about to say, I'm like, this is Korra. Yeah. Like, that's what this is.
Or Korra Season 1 title, yeah. So, there you go. Overall, you know, we're both like, okay about this episode, right?
Yep. It happened.
Let us know what you thought. Leave us some YouTube comments. You can comment on overlyanimated.com, although I'm getting a lot of spam, so I might have to shut down comments. And send us asks on Tumblr. Give a call, stake your claim. I'm going to encourage the main topic of YouTube comments to be stake your claim. Give us your theory for the last two episodes. This is your last chance. I know we have another week, but
I'm calling mine the random RWBY theory, where she just flies in.
Random RWBY. Okay. I've staked the Osmond Evil claim, although I don't think it's gonna happen anymore. I also have registered this Evil Pyrrha one today, although I don't know how that's gonna do. So yeah, let us know. It'll be interesting last two episodes. Not much anchoring down in terms of logic. So really, where are we gonna go? Who knows? Like
anyone could be right.
Anyone could be right. Like you could say the most absurd thing and it could happen, which is like which I know I'm saying is a bad thing, but it's also kind of fun. Like we're in this direction in the last two episodes.
I mean, hello, RWBY like flew a locker onto the ship. Like who knows?
Anything could happen. So stake your claim. Okay. I'm Dylan Nice and that's Delaney Stovall, overlyanimated.com. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons, Shayna, Mitch, Cordell, Beatrice, Nate, Andy, Jamie, and Rachel, aka Hannah, Fever, Mitch, Cordell, University, Beatrice, James, Buzz, like your mailman, and Rachel Rose. We'll be back next week to cover the second to last episode of RWBY of the season, and we will get ready for the finale. Maybe we'll have a RWBY's ending pretty soon. Maybe we'll have a Volume 3 wrap-up podcast. I just thought of that recently. That seems like a thing we could do. And yeah. Cool. No, that wasn't the bye yet.
Oh, sorry.
Wow. Okay, thanks for listening, guys.
Wow.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. A whole second.
Wow.